It was the middle of August 77, and I'd been trying to grow a beard, clipping and trimming it to perfection, shaving it clean under the chin and right along the jawline. We were travelling light, just one suitcase between the two of us, and I remember some panic about whether or not a bikini should be packed. Margot Bedswell had arranged 2 tickets for a stay at Forever Park. When we were kids, Forever Park seemed as inviting as heaven itself. That was before dereliction kicked in. A few years ago the place was in a dismal state, with all my favourite rides having been sold off, and the place becoming notorious for drug dealers, prostitutes, addicts and truants. Its eventual closure came as no surprise. The remaining rides were dismantled, all apart from the scenic railway, which had been listed as being of historical importance. 2 years on, after the multi-million programme of restoration, financed by the much-loved king of fashion and Parisian perfumer, Voltaire Laurent, Forever reopened. Thanks to a team of metal workers and carpenters that specialise in refurbishing fairground rides, the entertainment will have a nostalgic feel. The Dodgems, Punch and Judy, and the Wall of Death motorcycle show were all back in business. Whether or not Forever Park had managed to shed its mods and rocker reputation remained to be seen. All I could do was applaud the tenacity and vision of the wonderful Uncle Voltaire, who petitioned the local council to save Forever from being turned into another featureless retail park. For our stay, Margot had packed the humbug dress and the beehive hairpiece. I would colour clash my pale blue suit with a pair of bright red shoes and brown leather tie. Just for the crack, we would check in as international couple of mystery, Emma Valentine and Tim Chime. After declaring that I was, and I quote, too vain and insecure, Margot had previously dumped me. It was soon after that I'd witnessed her personality unwind behind a glass of wine, as she explained that her heart had been spiked, her chastity punctured, by the intense charms of a man who went by the name of Gordon Summers, a royal jelly merchant with high-tech ambitions, who was, in her words, far more becoming. Truth be known, Margot loved men younger than her. All she wanted was their boyishness, the very thing I most enjoyed giving. She wanted the raw smell of their pheromones, their grasping hands and hungry mouths. The more boyishness she had, the more girly she became. Fully sensitive to the pain she would cause herself, and well aware of the shock it would give Gordon, she'd come along to be rushed into bed by a young dude like me, and so had everything planned meticulously. I suppose you could call it one of those high chemistry relationships. To get things back on track, I'd hired a Cadillac convertible, cherry bomb red, with a dashboard alive with lights and dials that I wanted to understand. Why did I choose a Cadillac? Because with the wide-angle craziness of their proportions, I truly believe they make you the star of the show. To me, the thought of arriving in that kind of theatrical style was like a cape of invincibility, and you just can't catch a superhero hell-bent on making an impression, unless the car he's driving gobs out fuel in a steady rhythm or handles like a wheelbarrow. The romance of covering ground that way is one of the reasons why I love Cadillacs at full throttle. Life on Earth could offer nothing finer than what we had in front of us that day, the emptiest parts of a heavenly freeway, a red Cadillac and a tank full of fuel. So, with a stylish screech of rubber, I aimed the caddy into the wide tarmac of a blissfully empty road. After a while we hit the first village. All the stores seemed to be geared towards tourist-style hot dog trailers and ice cream parlours. There was even a drive-through ghost train, complete with its own plastic god Osiris, which was essentially a dummy holding a sceptre and flail. Next to him was Monster Mash Corner, complete with a waving Frankenstein, where, due to the acute tight bend at Dead Man's Curve, we were almost pitched into a graveyard. It was a right nightmare. I put my eyes back on the road and we pressed on, straight into frantic oblivion. all the while thinking that I wouldn't succeed in navigating the complex environment by peering relentlessly into the rearview mirror. To have stayed on that course was absolute lunacy. The fact of the matter was, there was no safety anywhere, just obscurity. It was just another frigging day in the park. A world turned upside down and given a good shake, with everything having landed in front of us. Margot looked worried with the blackbirds blasting past her head, and me, a 50s throwback mental case at the wheel, there was just nowhere to hide. At least the Sun King was happy, nothing but blue skies ahead. I heard a roar up above and could see a huge black smoke-trailing passenger jet take off about 200 feet above us. The passengers, a line of happily stoned faces, waving from the windows, and a greasy-haired pilot with sweat running black dye into his eyes. From the east, a paper chase of geese made their way across a flotilla of clouds skimming the Muscle Mountains of Long Valley. Swaying past the alpine cottages and into sweeping meadows, it looked like a scene from a cheese commercial. The world was in the palm of my hand. We were listening to Century FM on the radio, and they'd just finished playing Are You Lonesome Tonight, when a Father Milligan came on from the hall of the local fellowship to say that the spiritual levels would remain high. Well, the temperature in his congregation hit fever pitch. He was absolutely gushing over this, couldn't get his breath. Why are evangelists so capricious? Even when they're trying to be sincere, you can tell it's all fake. You just know that under their saintly exterior there's a child who used to laugh when their friends fell off their bicycles, loosened their brakes most probably. After mile upon mile, with bodily muscles humming from the lateral forces, the landscape between us and the distant mountains fell away into tundra, broken up by a long patch of dead brown earth the size of a football pitch. Then came a very high conifer hedge, and behind it, overlooking the freeway, a life-size King Kong with huge, angry red eyes and foaming mouth. He looked so convincing. It's amazing what they can do with animatronics. He was scaling the Empire State Building, and they'd even arranged steam vapour to stream from his nostrils, as he clung on to the not-so-fragile brunette in chamois leather. I always thought she wore a business suit in the New York scenes. And wasn't she blonde in the movie? But then it was hot, and bottle blondes are so yesterday. This young actress was pure glamour. Half Brazilian, I think. I remember wondering how many Brazilian traits she had. I bet that she could dance a salsa. And she had, well, let's just say that bra shopping would have been a liberating experience. She didn't look like she could play football, though. Well, you can't have everything, can you? Anyway, when Kong's hand opened, his finger broke, causing Rio to plunge through the gap. I named her Rio. It might have well been Fiona or Sabrina, I don't know. Anyway, she plunged through up to her armpits, hanging on to what was left of Kong's finger, her pert legs wriggling helplessly over the ground. The traffic had come to a standstill. I could see grey concrete through the gap in the hedge. She was waving and screaming at us, and her lipstick had gone up the side of her face. When I tried to wind the window down, the handle came off. Then the inside door panel came off completely. Margot leaned over and joined in, and we managed to get it down. Nobody else seemed bothered except the man in the car behind. He sounded like he'd had a heart attack and fallen onto the steering wheel. I was doing all the hand signals to Rio, saying the words with my mouth wide open so, if she couldn't hear me, at least she could read my lips. Do you need help? Margot pleaded with me. Go on, go and help her. So I broke open the door, jumped out, and made a run for the central barrier, straight into a graveyard of roadkill. A skunk, a wild rabbit, a child's teddy bear. I jumped over and prayed that I wouldn't meet a truck coming the other way. When I looked back, people were whooping and punching the air out of their car windows for a mile-long traffic jam. I'm not usually very good with panoramas that can kill you, but sometimes you have to trust your inner voice, I soon reached the ditch on the other side, slid down, got covered in mud, caught my foot on the side of a plastic pipe that was feeding the stream with pungent water, banged my shin and fell in. Only up to my knees though. Looking like some psychologically off-balanced water rat, fresh out of a drain pipe with a wet beard that felt like standard wino trim. With a mouth to match, my mind grew a voice of its own, and had the tone of a man who knows how to save a damsel in distress. "Take hold of that root," it said. "Haul yourself up." With a mighty heave I made it to the top of the bank and peered through a gap in the hedge. There were a couple of bangs and a fireball. Holy smoke, I thought. Through the billowing blankets of white dust and broken polystyrene, I could hear a PA system crank up and play March of the Valkyrie. Then a tank burst through, a Cromwell, with John Wayne riding on top, arms folded, chewing on a big fat cigar. Rio reached up and John bent one of those long legs at the knee and pulled her on board, and off they went, rumbling away into the orange sunset. I waded back through the ditch, put my head down and just ran. I said that I wouldn't swear in this, but bloody hell, what a day. The traffic had moved on, and I had taken the car keys with me. Margot had somehow managed to push the car into a lay-by. It was there I asked her if I could see her in her bikini. She agreed. It was a wake-up call for me, and evidence enough that I had fallen completely under Forever Park's amnesic spell. But you have to pay the devil his dues. You buy the ticket, you keep your hands inside the car, and take the ride. Okay, I admit. When we got back on the road, we were weaving wildly, narrowly avoiding the purple rolling lawns, giant mushrooms, and the spotted pink horns, on a freeway made of blue asphalt. The way that the car was rolling around, it was like sailing on a river of blue listerine. Just as we were turning off into Forever Lane, with me thinking that I was driving as well as could be expected in a vehicle of yesteryear, I noticed the blue and reds flashing behind me. Maybe I had been driving a little fast, but it had always been with a natural flair and respect for all the other road dogs coming the other way. And no cop was ever born who isn't a sucker for a finely handled broadside, all the way round a daisy-covered traffic island. Few people have a grasp on how to deal with their first siren hell. The average tourist would immediately panic and pull over to the side, once their car had been flooded with blue light. Let me tell you, don't just pull over and begin your apologies and pleas for mercy. This is a big mistake, and you will only excite suspicion in the copper's mind. What you should do is press down hard and get to where you're going. Let him believe that you are doing the responsible thing by looking for a proper place to pull off and talk. With any luck at all, you will have come to a complete standstill, and you'll be waiting beside your own cherry bomb Cadillac, completely sober by the time he catches up with you. It might not be reasonable at first. This is a risk you take, but stay calm. This will keep him calm. If he wants the first word, let him have it. His brain might be squirming. He may begin by spilling his words, or even pulling his gun. Let him cool down. Keep smiling. The trick is to give him the impression that you were always in control of the situation, while he'd lost control of everything. With the Royal Protection Cops still behind us, navigating the Cadillac through the park's golden gates and the arches of white roses was a little worrisome. Yawing across the palazzo with a bit of nerves, I lost control, hit the pavement outside the main entrance. That's how to arrive at a hotel. With the cops behind you, that's how people remember you. I'd cracked the exhaust, so the car was filling with toxic smoke. Let a woman run the show from the beginning, and that's what happens.